So now that we are coming to the end of the year, you might be a little bit lost about what you want to do with your career, where you want to go, or what you want to be doing in the future. Don't worry, I got you covered. Hey, Juan here. If you don't know me, I'm a product leader who has been working in tech companies for over 20 years now. So many of us at some point feel like we are a little bit lost about what we want to do with our careers, or maybe we don't even know what we want to do in the future. And we might not be completely happy with what we are doing at this point. And I wanted to talk about this topic because I wanted to talk maybe a little bit about experience and maybe give you some examples of how this has worked for me, and that sometimes not having a goal or not having a clear idea of where you're going to be in the future is not the end of the world. You also can take advantage of that situation, and you can also look forward into how to potentially adapt and look forward for these new opportunities that are going to come in your way. So let me tell you a little bit the story of how did I come and what was my journey with having very little planning and idea of what I wanted to be in the future. So let me start from the very beginning. When I was a teenager and what I wanted to be back then. At the very beginning, I really was liking a lot astronomy and everything related to stars, planets, and all that world was something that was fascinating to me. Hard science fiction. I was complete fan of it. I'm very nerdy about it. But back when I was a teenager. So when I started to think about what career I would like to have in the future, I actually started to think about studying astrophysics or being an astronaut, which, as you can imagine, being an astronaut probably back then in Spain, it was not very realistic. I don't think that there had been back then the first astronaut that was Spanish. So it was somewhere in the 90s, I think. I don't remember exactly when. But when I started to think about this, probably was not even there. So it was a very, it was difficult to see that could happen. But anyways, and then there was astrophysics, which I thought that it was an interesting career. But I don't know if it was talking with my parents or just myself. I started to think that maybe the career opportunities of this were not that high, and basically I kind of dismissed the astrophysics as one of potential career path for me. But then I started to read here and there what could be the possibilities of being an astronaut. Obviously, it's very hard, but one of them was to be a pilot, which was something that was very fascinating also for me. So I started to do these exams. There's some kind of public exams that you have to apply in Spain to be a pilot. Long story short, I actually didn't get through because I passed the exam, but because in the very last year when I was doing the exams, I actually had had to use not to use glasses at that point, but I started to notice that my eyesight was not perfect, and at that point there was very little surgery done in the eyes with laser and so on. So that was something that it was not an option. So unfortunately, that kind of train passed by, and that was just a dream that I wanted to have, something that I really, really wanted to do. But there it went. Kind of in the same time, being a potential astronaut went there. But while I was studying this, when I wanted to try to enter into being a pilot, actually I started studying industrial engineering because they could give you points for the exams if you pass subjects actually in the career. So I was studying, and then actually when I didn't get the job, I didn't get I didn't get to enter and be a pilot. I actually decided to continue with the industrial engineering. Well, call that motivation for studying a degree. Actually, I chose the degree thinking that could be an interesting degree, but I cannot say that that was my passion or my highest motivation to do that degree. Eventually, I started majoring in electronics and automation, and that I found very interesting. My first jobs were with machine vision or computer vision and robotics. And actually, I really enjoyed that. I really liked that job. I actually was working in that area for 4 years. And while I was working in an R&D and a research and development center in Spain, and that was, I don't think it was for profit. I think it was a non-profit place. I gotta say it was interesting job. Maybe not so interesting. The dynamics sometimes it was a little bit slow for my taste. And then I started to look into what could be things that could be interesting to do in the future. And of course, when reading about tech and reading about career development, there were, of course, all the cool places that they were doing all this cool stuff, like Silicon Valley back then. And but I thought that the jump of going to Silicon Valley might have been a little bit too big jump for me, so I never took it. But then I started to look within Europe, which was much closer to home, or home back then, let's say. And I started to look and saw that, well, Scandinavia was generally pretty okay also when it came to that, to take within Europe. So I decided to start look for opportunities. So I moved to Finland with actually only some interviews in my pocket, but no contract at that point. And actually, none of the interviews that I came when I moved to Finland, actually I managed to land. Luckily, being in the EU, you can move to another country for 3 months and look for a job. If you land a contract within those 3 months, then you're good to stay. And I managed to land the contract. I think it was 2 months after I came here or moved to Finland, and I started to work as a software engineer. So that was one of the things that think about how do you come from those steps. I really didn't know what was going to be my career. I just wanted to try to work in a tech company, and the same for wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to do one thing, but it ended up being something else. Actually, didn't even end up working even as in anything related to machine vision or robotics. That were the things that I was most interested back then, and I started doing software engineering, which was something that I was doing because of machine vision. So your idea of what a career can be is not necessarily what the reality of your career is going to be. For me, it has been many times. And the next one that was kind of funny was that after working for this company as a software engineer for a few months, my boss reached out and asked me if I wanted to be the support person for the APIs that they have recently released in the product. This was early 2000s. And I was like, well, yeah, why not? I can try. Sounds like it could be interesting. And it was not a full-time thing. It was, there was not that many people using the API at that point. So I was like, I could try that. It could be interesting. And actually, that ended up being interesting. That was just an out of the blue thing. I could have said no, and who knows what my career would have been ended. But that got me in touch with customers. That got me in touch with developers that were trying to create their own tools to solve their own problems. But then I had to figure out how I could help them solving their own problems, which was how to use our tool to solve their own problems. In the end, we are in a change of solving problems for problem solvers who are solving problems for other people that have problems. Yeah, that's the reality. But anyways, there is a meaning to that, and ideally you are working for something that also brings value to somebody in the end, and it brings fulfillment to you as well. Let's not go into the content or the treadmill of creating value nonstop. But this was great experience for me because, first of all, I understood better what customers were trying to do. I got to understand quite well what they were trying to do. Actually, I got a ton of contact with them because I was in contact with them pretty much daily. And then that also got me in contact with people that were doing product management. That was also key for me because it really showed me or helped me understand what product management was. And pretty soon, I started to like it a lot. This one probably was one of my most conscious decisions or movements career-wise. I think that relatively soon of well, not maybe not relatively soon, but after doing it 1 or 2 years, this support plus being a software engineer at the same time, I started to think that yeah, this product management sounds like a very interesting career path. At first, I thought that I couldn't do it, but one of the people in the product team one day was saying that people that have a background in tech did very good product managers and had a great career path in front of them. I had never thought about that. Seriously, I never thought about that. That was a surprise for me. That was like an eye-opening moment that, oh, if you have a background that is more technical and if you're interested in customers and helping them and trying to figure out how to bring those solutions that are going to bring value to those customers, that's a very good potential path, career path for you. That was an eye-opener, and that really got me very interested in being a product manager in the future. So what I did is as I continue building the contact with the product management people, and I got in very good relationship, especially with two of them. And eventually one of them moved in their career to a more like senior role. And I basically asked him what what was going to happen with his position. At that point, I think that I don't know if they opened it or how it has happened. I don't think that they were thinking even about a replacement. I end up talking with the team lead, and they thought that yes, they were going to need a replacement for him as a more like a technical product manager. And I pretty much fit the bill and tick all the boxes of the person that they were looking, because I have been working with that person very closely. So eventually I got the job, and it was pretty interesting. And probably that is a career move that I can say that although I got there through not very well planned execution, I actually, for that last stage, I really planned it and I really wanted to do that move. Then I continued there for several years. And at some point, of course, I started to got the itch of maybe working in a new product. Potentially, there was not a ton of growth within or development within that company. I ended up going into another company, and I started as a product manager, but simple product manager. So no senior product manager, no nothing like that. And I started working there. That company, well, it was a small company. It had a very successful product, but there was not a very strong product culture, with a product management culture. And there, well, I was talking because it was a small company. It was easy to talk with the CEO or with the different directors. So I was talking a little bit. Okay, how could we organize processes in maybe a more efficient manner? Maybe that we could bring more value to the customers and get their feedback maybe faster into the product and so on. And after having several these many discussions with them, I know I pretty much got invited to the management team, still being a product manager. Uh, I probably was 1 year or something like that. Since I started in that company, I was the director of product management. I already had been hiring people for the product team, so there were more people being product. I think that they were called product owners back then in that company, together working with me. And that was something that was very important for me, from the point of view that I I really didn't plan to be a product lead. It was not like in my vision. It kind of happened naturally with me just doing, I hope, what it was a good work. At least what my peers and the people that were in the management team in that company saw that I was doing a good job, and that I should be part of the management team. And sometimes it's not about selling yourself to be this, great thing and pretend to play the part and all these things. It's just do a great job and bring value to the company. And things can happen also. So you don't have to think that companies are these evil, beings or corporations, and that potentially are filled with problems. Even if all of them will have problems, it's just a thing of life. All of us have problems, not just companies. But the reality is that if you do a good job people will pay attention and people will notice. This is very important. Opportunities will come in front of you. This is going to be something that is going to help you potentially do these moves, do this, see where you want to be. I have more and I have been working more. And obviously, if you have been following my channel, I move in my career to build these product communities in another company, which unfortunately ended up having or being affected by the layoffs in late 22 and beginning of 2023. And unfortunately, many people were affected, not just me. I was in a lucky position of not having terrible problems with the layoffs. Some managed to find a consulting gig in the beginning of summer. And I have been working now since then, consulting a company. And that has been also very important. And also, again, something that I was looking for different roles in product leads. And this came from one guy now that knew me from the past and knew me from one company that I was working in. And he reached out asking that, hey, they were looking for somebody to drive product in their company because the person that was driving it at this point was going in maternity leave and they needed somebody to go and help them. And I started working there. And also I started to bring things like, hey, I have been working in go-to-market in the past. I'm happy to help you with that if you need a hand. And something that I have been helping also with the go-to-market side of the products that we are building now. So in reality, it's okay not knowing what you want to be in the future. Most of us don't. And look, some of you might think that I'm successful. Some of you might think that I'm not. I am way over 40 nowadays. I landed my first director role. I don't know. I was over 40 for sure. So it was not something that it was super fast that I was a director pretty young, but it was not even planned. And I didn't have a goal of being a product leader and being part of management teams and so on. So in reality, when you think about life and what happens is that, and not having a plan, it's okay. It's good to have goals. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying that. But it's also good to be open to opportunities. And I think that this is very important for people. This is something for you to understand. If you don't have a plan, that's kind of fine, but you have to be open to see when a new opportunity comes, analyze it, see if it's a good opportunity, and if it's good, jump. I have taken bad opportunities, like going to the startup, and I'm not blaming the startup, it just happened to be affected by those layoffs. But the reality is that there are going to be opportunities. Some of them are going to be great, like I end up being a director, and some of them are going to be not so great. I end up being laid off in a startup. So the reality is that there's going to be opportunities, and you have to pay attention to those opportunities when they appear. Sometimes they can be very subtle, like, hey, do you want to do the support for the API? Well, I had to say that I was not very thrilled the first time that I heard about it, but I was like, well, heck yeah, I can try at least. And sometimes even a small opportunity that doesn't sound super awesome, it might take you down a path that you never expected. So think about this, taking a secondary road, it's on itself an adventure. Taking a new path in your career, it's on itself an adventure. And it's all about sometimes more the journey than the actual destination. So I would say that pay attention to that shiny, potentially cool road that is on the side. And sometimes it's not that bad to go and try. Am I saying that you jump into every opportunity? No, don't do that. That would be a bad idea. Assess them, see if they make sense, and see if that's something that could fit for you. If so, go and give it a try. Then I think that you might end up finding your career path, your goals, and something that really motivates you in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. I will see you in the next one. And remember, stay safe.